The New Jersey Devils did everything right except win the game. What went wrong and what was the turning point, and how did a dominant performance go for naught? We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Chalky Play Announcer, Devils Writer of Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. Don't you just hate games like the one you just saw? It's great when you're on the winning side, but if you're on the losing end, it's just an absolute heartbreaker. All the work that the Devils put into that game went for naught. Well, I shouldn't say that. They did walk away with a point because that game went into OT, but it's just not good enough. That was almost a perfect game from New Jersey, came out guns blazing to begin the matchup that was exclusively aired on ESPN Plus, and they put up an L in the column. In the first segment, I will share some of my main takeaways. Then in the second segment, we will hear from Sheldon Keefe and explain what went wrong for New Jersey and what do they need to do moving forward. Then in the third and final segment, like I do with every post-game recap, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. First, some housekeeping. Max Domi returned to the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Nathan Bastian was back in action for New Jersey. Remember, he's been out for a few weeks due to him getting into a fisticuff match with Ryan Lomberg. Well, wasn't really a fisticuff match. It was more of Nathan getting his jaw bashed in. See what I did there? Couldn't help myself. But Nathan Bastian was out with an injured jaw, and now he is back with New Jersey. I just want to give Nathan Bastian some credit because remember when I said that the Devils were coming out guns blazing to begin the game? Right out the gate, Bastian impressed me because it seemed like he was flying all over the rink. He was playing aggressive. Obviously, he had to play with a full bubble on, but he has to protect his face. Let me just say, whether you want to admit it or not, Nathan Bastian was missed, at least on the PK, because when Nathan Bastian was out, the Devils' PK took a bit of a dip. Now, I'm not saying he is the sole reason for it, but he's an important piece. You need all the pieces in the puzzle to make a clear image, if you know what I mean. Nathan Bastian, welcome back. Is he elite? No, but I think he gets too much hate for what it's worth. All right. What do I mean that the Devils came out guns blazing to begin this game? Well, in the previous matchup, they got shut out by the Colorado Avalanche. And like many other people, I challenged the Devils. I said, you've been shut out 5 times this year. You are tied with the Utah Hockey Club and also the Nashville Predators for getting blanked the most this season. You are a playoff caliber team. How do you respond to it? And against the Toronto Maple Leafs, against Sheldon Keefe's old team, against a team that embarrassed you in the home opener, the Devils had a spark. And at the end of the first period, they led in the shots 16-1. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Devils held the Leafs to one measly shot on Jacob Markstrom at the conclusion of the first period. But nothing to show for. It was still a deadlock, 0 apiece. Anthony Stolarz was playing out of his mind. And he kept the Devils in check despite the Devils pounding on that door. The second period was pretty much the same. The Devils had a lot of urgency. They had a pep in their step. And at the conclusion of the second period, the Devils had 11 shots compared to the Leafs 5. So the Devils were leading in the shots on goal category 27-6 at the conclusion of the first 40 minutes. And here's a fun fact for you. That is the least amount of shots that the Leafs have generated after the first two periods since 2013. So the Leafs were on the wrong side of history in this game. The Devils did something that no team has been able to do in over a decade, which is hold the Leafs to such little shots after the first two periods. And after the second period, the Devils were up 1-0 thanks to Andre Palat on a great shot and a great setup by Jesper Bratt near wing. But the biggest talking point at the conclusion of the second period wasn't the shots, wasn't Andre Palat. It was Max Pacioretty and his big hit on Jack Hughes. Now, a lot of people have their fair share of opinions. Did Jack Hughes have his head down? Was that hit necessary? Did Jack Hughes have the puck? Because if he didn't have the puck, what was the point of that hit? Was it charging? Was it too aggressive? Why didn't anyone drop the mitts and fight Pacioretty because Jack Hughes is the star player? That's the bigger question, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily. To take care of business, was that a dirty play from Pacioretty? I think in real time, I can understand why people thought that was a dirty play, but based on my perspective, was Pacioretty a little too aggressive? Yes, but I can understand why the referees didn't call it. Looking back at the replay a few times, Jack Hughes did have control of the puck, and Pacioretty was making his way toward him. A lot of momentum, and unfortunately, it did lead to that hit. And Jack Hughes was fine. He continued, and Sheldon Keefe said post-game that he forgot about it. But the thing is like, Jack Hughes is the star player, and he just took a big hit from Pacioretty. I don't care if it was justified or not. You need to set an example and say, you're not going to do that toward our star player. Brendan Dillon was out there on the rink. Drop the mitts and do what you're being paid to do, which is protect the star players. One of the complaints that people have been having with this Devils team the last few years is that they're too soft. And like I said, whether it was justified or not, clean or not, go after Pacioretty. We saw this back in January when former Devil Brendan Smith laid a big hit on Connor Bedard. I said it then, and I said it now. There was nothing malicious about that hit from Brendan Smith. But I can understand why a lot of the Blackhawks players wanted to go after him, because Connor Bedard, that's their star player. That's their most touted piece. You need to set an example, and Connor Bedard was sidelined due to a broken jaw. That's where I stand with the whole ordeal. I don't care if it was clean or not. You still need to set an example and say, you're not going to do this to our star player. Like I said, I didn't really see anything that caused for any red flags, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that the Devils need to respond. All right, going into the third period. What happened in the home opener when the Devils took on the Leafs? The Devils got burned by the Leafs' bottom six players like Steven Lorentz and Bobby McMahon. And what happened in this period? The Devils surrendered a shorthanded goal thanks to Holmberg. And that tied the game. And you knew that wasn't going to be good for New Jersey, especially since they were struggling all night to get more goals on Stolarz. He was standing like a brick wall. And I will talk more about what I saw from that particular play, because obviously that was a huge turning point in the game. Then the game goes into OT, and Auston Matthews, he had been whistling at a lot of shots early on in the game. He had been missing. And this time around, he did not miss Jacob Markstrom. And he tucked it on in, end of game. Devils lose in OT 2-1 to the Maple Leafs. All right, we'll hear from Sheldon Keefe momentarily, and he'll share his thoughts as to what went wrong for his team. Before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, here's what head coach Sheldon Keefe had to say about the 2-1 loss that his team suffered against the Leafs. Take a listen.
Toronto, energy was one of the things, execution. How did you feel your team did in those areas despite the score?
I thought it was great. That is as good a game we've played all season.
And what stood out about the defensive effort against Toronto?
We just pressured the puck. We worked. I thought we won puck battles consistently. I mean, we lost some on the first goal. Aside from that, I thought we were just outstanding competitively. It's clearly our best first period of the season, like not even close. So, yeah, I leave here feeling pretty good about our team tonight.
Plot's effort to get that goal and Bratt drawing the defenseman over. Can you just talk about the effort on that goal?
Yeah, it was a transition play. The second period got a little bit wide open, back and forth both ways, and capitalized, but great finish by Pally.
Coach, you mentioned this felt like one of the better efforts of the season. What do you think prevented your team from being able to bury more pucks?
Best goaltending in the league on the other side.
You talked after the loss on Sunday that you wanted to see a emotional response. Did you see that in those final 10 minutes of the game?
It was our best game of the season. I feel like I said, I'm leaving here today feeling as good as I have about our team all year.
I know Sheldon Keefe is yearning for his first win against his former club. And like I said, the Devils came out with a sense of urgency from start to finish. In OT, I saw Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier, whomever, create decent looks for themselves. And I also saw them make some smart hockey moves, which is peel on back, see if you can get the Leafs in the middle of a change, and then you got an odd man rush in your favor. Fortunately, the Devils couldn't fool Stolarz. Here are a few of my main takeaways from this game. Number one, the Devils' luck just ran out. And what do I mean by that? Well, I alluded to it in the first segment. Auston Matthews had a few opportunities throughout the course of the game to find the back of the net on Jacob Markstrom. But there were a few instances in which he missed. And I'm just like, how does Auston Matthews miss that badly? You don't see that too often. This is the same player that scored 69 goals last season. He knows how to find the back of the twine. But in this instance, he was just missing. And even the broadcasters were wondering, like, how does this happen? And I'm just like, okay, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and sometimes it's good to be lucky, because in this game, Jacob Markstrom, he was still facing some quality shots, but the quantity of which he was facing them was down. And I'm just like, okay, Markstrom's not being overworked. Maybe that's a good thing. And like I said, if you give Auston Matthews a few more chances, sooner or later, he's going to find the back of the net. And that's exactly what he did in OT. And I knew that was trouble. So that's my main thing. I don't usually like using the L word because luck is very subjective when it comes to sports. Me personally, I don't believe in luck. I believe in timely or untimely coincidences. But in this sort of matter, I got to make an exception because, like I said, Auston Matthews is amazing. And the fact that he was missing these opportunities early on in the game, I'm just like, the Devils should be counting their lucky stars. My other takeaway is that Jacob Markstrom, he needed to make that save in the third period when the Devils were on the power play. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. Now, going back to that play, there are a few issues to point out. The first being is that Jack Hughes had control of the puck and Chris Tanev popped it free from him. And then Dewar was racing alongside Dawson Mercer, and Mercer couldn't really stop him. And Mercer went for a bit of a tumble in his defensive end. And then Dewar just dropped it on back to Holmberg. And it wasn't really that difficult of a save to make, if you ask me. That was a very savable circumstance for Jacob Markstrom. And he even admitted post game that he just whiffed at it and he let in a soft goal. This has been an issue for Jacob Markstrom. I've defended Jacob Markstrom in the past. And to this very day, I still believe he is a solid goalie. But you have got to make that save, especially in that sort of circumstance where your team isn't generating that many goals. So you got to try to squeak away with a victory. But also, Dougie Hamilton just didn't play that physical defensively. Like, Holmberg didn't seem that bothered by Hamilton, who was within close proximity. So there are just a lot of moving pieces. Some people are blaming Mercer. Some people are blaming Hughes. Some people are blaming Markstrom. Some people are blaming Hamilton. My thing is, like, if you want to pick who to really blame, I'm going to go with Jacob Markstrom and Dougie Hamilton, because Dougie should have been a little bit more physical to slow down Holmberg, and Markstrom needed to make that save. But at the end of the day, it was just a bunch of moving pieces that just didn't fall into the favor of New Jersey. Simple as that. So on that instance, the Devils have been really good on the PK. They've been good on special teams, period, but they allowed a shorthanded goal. And then Anthony Stolarz, the New Jersey native, he played out of his mind in this game. Now, a lot of people are wondering, did he save his best for the Devils? Well, similar to what Sheldon Keefe said, this Leafs team is very good when it comes to goaltending. I know that's been an issue for them in the past, but Michael DiStefano, my colleague over at Locked On Leafs, he actually educated me on this during the summer. He said goaltending wasn't the issue for the Leafs in the playoffs. They actually had good performances from Joseph Woll. It was other circumstances like their power play just not clicking. But digressing a little bit, coming into this matchup, Stolarz had a record of 8-5-2, a 2.22 goals against average, and a 924 save percentage. And Woll, who was backing him up in this game, entered this matchup with a record of 7-3, 2.2 goals against average, and a 919 save percentage. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Stolarz was playing at a higher level than he usually is. He's been good all year. Same with Woll. So I got to give credit where credit is due. He came back to New Jersey and he put on a great performance, I guess, in front of his family and friends, because I'm going to presume that they were in the stands rooting him on. Just got to tip your cap, because, like I said, the Devils came out buzzing, but Stolarz just stood tall. And the last thing I could say, at least the Devils got a point out of it. I would have been way more disappointed if they lost in regulation, but for their hard work and good efforts for the most part, they got something out of it. 1 point is better than no points if I have to look at it optimistically, if I have to look at the glass half full. All right. I'm going to compare the stats, give the Devils a letter grade momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Prize Picks. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks, if you didn't know already. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. This week on Prize Picks, I'm eyeing the hockey board, looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal and Artemi Panarin for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, let's compare the stats, give the Devils a letter grade, and get out of here. Shots on goal differential, 39-16 in favor of the Devils. 16 shots in the first, 11 in the second, 11 in the third, only 1 in OT. The Leafs, 1 shot in the first, 5 in the second. Like I said, 6 shots after the first 2 periods. That is the lowest amount of shots that the Leafs have generated in that span since 2013. 8 shots in the third, 2 in OT. The dagger was Auston Matthews. Power plays. Devils were 0 for 4. Leafs were 0 for 3, but they had a shorthanded goal. Hits, 22-18 in favor of Toronto. Giveaways, 13-11 in favor of Toronto. Takeaways, 9-4 in favor of New Jersey. Block shots, 20-13 in favor of Toronto. Now, they talked about this on air. If you're wondering why the Devils generated 16 shots but nothing to show for it, the Leafs were generating a decent amount of blocks, and I think that's also what helped them in front of their netminder. Time spent in the penalty box, 8-6 in favor of Toronto. All right. Similar to what Sheldon Keefe said, this was a perfect game from New Jersey. Unfortunately, just one particular play came back to bite them. And whoever you want to blame in that instance, Hughes, Mercer, Hamilton, or Markstrom, I'll leave it up to you. But once again, just many moving pieces that resulted in the Devils sacrificing a shorthanded goal. The Devils came out with a sense of urgency after getting shut out. They were trying to make a statement against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Devils struggle at home. The Leafs struggle on the road, which I thought was an interesting dynamic. At the end of the day, if I had to give the Devils a letter grade, I'm actually going to give them a B+, because this game was still very good. The reason I can't give them an A is because they came out on the losing end, and I'm not really big on moral victories. So I had to ding them a couple points, but I will give them a B+. It wasn't a bad game, not a bad game at all. It was a good effort. Unfortunately, they messed up at the wrong time, and they allowed Auston Matthews one too many chances, and it finally came back to bite them in overtime. Oof, those ones sting. Sometimes you win some, you lose some, and in this case, the Devils lost this one, and it was in heartbreaking fashion. It was entertaining, though. I'll give them that. I think ESPN did a good job with their telecast. That's at least my personal opinion. But let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.